One of the things parents sometimes ask me is, what should I do when my child is really angry, like out of control with anger, hitting, screaming, punching, yelling? And what I say to them is, right in that moment, it really doesn't matter. Now, I'm exaggerating a little, of course. There are some things we do as parents at that time that makes it worse, and there are things we can do that can make it a little bit better. But what I'm really saying is, in that moment when your child is really angry, whatever you do is far less important than what you do a few hours later, or that night, or the next day. Because later on, when the child is calm and you're calmer, it's really important to have what I call a follow-up conversation with that child. This is hard to do. Kids don't like having follow-up conversations, and even as parents, we don't always want to go back and address it. You know, life goes on, we're busy, and why talk about something that was really unpleasant for us and them at the time? But the trouble is, unless we have these follow-up conversations, unless we think about what went wrong, then the chances of things changing are pretty low. So make sure you grit your teeth, be brave, and jump in. After something's gone wrong, when the dust has settled, go back and say to your child, we need to talk about this. We don't have to talk about it for hours, but for 5 minutes, you and I, we're going to have a conversation about what went wrong here. And I'm really ready to listen to you now and hear about what happened. And I want to talk with you about how I felt too. Now, there are 3 important parts of the follow-up conversation. The first part is asking questions. Here, it's our opportunity to really dig deep, be a detective, and find out what the child was thinking in that moment. What was the worst thing about that for them? What did they really want? What was it that was most upsetting there? What did they want to tell us that they couldn't really perhaps tell us because they were feeling so mad? Sometimes kids don't know this, so it's up to us to try and take some guesses and see if we can figure out what goes wrong. But asking questions of the child here is important, not just because we're getting information from them, but also because it sends the message that we are interested in how they feel and how they think. Now, the second part of the follow-up conversation is to express our concerns. Parents' views and concerns, they matter too. So it's okay to gently and without guilt-inducing to actually tell the child why this was tricky for you and how you felt and what it was that you wanted and why and what was going on for you in that moment. Now, you have to do this in a child kind of appropriate way, but here's your chance to be able to give some ideas to the child about the kinds of things that you were thinking. Now, the third part of the follow-up conversation is about trying to help yourself and the child do something slightly differently next time. So you can only do this if you've really spent time finding out what they were thinking and if you've expressed your concerns. But if you've done those 2 bits right, then sometimes finding out what you could do differently next time isn't that hard. Remember, we're not trying to change big patterns of behavior here. We're just trying to look for one small thing that you could have done and the child could have done that would have meant that maybe it wouldn't have got quite to the point that it did. Try and go right back kind of early on, just before the child got angry or you got angry, and figure out if there's something that could have been done then that might be different. These follow-up conversations are tough. They take lots of discipline to do. But please take a deep breath and make sure you put the time into having these conversations with kids, because you'll find it means that the blow-ups will happen a little bit less often.